Welcome back to MMA UK. I'm Jared Miller, and it's a pleasure to be joined this afternoon by Cage Warriors featherweight contender Harry Houdini Hardwick. Harry, how are we, mate?
We are good. Uh, Things are busy. Being an adult is annoying, but life's good.
Life's good. That's what we like to hear, mate. And talking of life's good, I saw on your socials you were living it up in Sweden over the last couple of weeks. How was that holiday for you?
Oh, yeah, it was great. My lass organised it, so it was just like a surprise with a birthday thing. Oh, we're going to see the Northern Lights, and I was like, sound. So we got to Stockholm, and things are just, stuff's weird, but it's still Stockholm. It's still a city. It's kind of like recognizable. Then we got a 16-hour night train up to Abisko, well in the north of Sweden. And I thought with it being in the Arctic Circle, it would be fucking freezing and agony and horrible. But it was actually like, I don't know if it's because it's like dry cold, but like -16 out there isn't as cold as 3 degrees here when it's drizzly.
It
So
feels
I think Wim Hof's actually a scam artist and he's bullshitting. Because like it's easy, I walked around with my shirt off for a bit outside out there in -16. It's no problem. Wim Hof couldn't survive a drizzly English afternoon.
maybe that's just because you're just hardened to it by now, mate. Those northern weathers just they've got to you. But
You know what? Like, I didn't think the weather would be that drastic. My bird lives down south, and like my girlfriend, that was very very kind of. But my girlfriend lives down south, and like I didn't realize that the weather would be as different as it is, but it is different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's wetter
So
up
was there,
here.
I'm guessing there wasn't much training out there then. I was going to ask, did you bump into the likes of Kim ever anything like that? But I'm guessing not.
No, I mean, sled dogging was like kind of hard work. It wasn't like a proper relaxing, resting holiday, which was probably good because I'd had a bit of an injury break anyway, so I wasn't training as hard in the lead up to it. So I didn't really feel like I needed a rest. So having stuff to do and having it being more active was much better for me. I think if I'd have just fought and I was still a bit tired from the fight camp and tired from the fight, I'd have maybe just wanted to just fucking sit down. But because I was just coming off an injury break and I was having all this energy, I was like, oh, on these sleds being towed by these dogs across this Arctic landscape, and it's great, and you're just zooming about and all this kind of stuff. Oh, let's hike up this hill. Oh, let's throw this big snowball and stuff. Or maybe I'm just a child. I don't know.
Maybe it's sometimes better to be a child, mate. It's sometimes better to be a child. And you just mentioned there, obviously, you were meant to be fighting Shoaib Yousaf at Cage Warriors 150 a few weeks ago, but as you said, you had that injury problem. I was wondering whether you could tell us here about the injury and give a bit more information about it.
Yeah, so hurt my neck, fell down, and like me and another person's body weight kind of went through the top of my head down into my spine a bit. And then I knew it was bad at the time, but I was just like, meh. Because like you do have to get used to training around and through injuries to an extent in fighting. Like it is going to happen. But neck's not one of those that you can do that with really. And I kept training for like another 2 weeks with it. I was still wrestling and and like it was like 2.5, 3 weeks. Something like after most sessions, like if me and George were me and any of my training partners were sat talking about life, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have just pushed harder. But my neck was giving me grief.
Yeah,
And it was at those points that I probably should have stopped. But
probably.
I kept training, and then like I ended up like jolting it and getting a stinger like through my arm, and then I was like, this is really bad. Actually, like I'm not taking stock of this. Um, well,
Yeah.
what I mean, it even got to the point where in strength and conditioning, I was like, oh, can we not do squats? Can we just do the leg press to get impact? Like get weight off of that area. Uh, yeah. So maybe if I'd have taken like a week off of rounds when it had first happened, it might have been all right. Um, but I didn't, and it wasn't.
But as
So
you kind of mentioned it there as well. It's the life of a fighter where sometimes you've got to fight through injuries, but then that can be the hindrance as well, can't it?
yeah, like my knee was bad going into the aimable fight. Like when I was throwing right kicks, I would get a sharp pain on the inside of my knee if I didn't really turn my shin over properly. Or I remember missing a side kick in sparring and it like hyperextended and jarred out and it was really painful. But I kind of just went through that. Like I avoided it and worked around it. And then I had the best performance of my career. So I was kind of just like, I think that had set me up for failure in the future. Being like, oh yeah, it's okay to just do that where it's not.
Yeah. And I got to question you. Are you back in the gym now, or is it a rehabilitation period? Is it full training? What's going on at the minute?
So from pulling out, there was a bit more of a resting period. I started rehabbing it about a week, like the week leading up to my holiday. So that had been the fight week pretty much. I started being able to do strength stuff on it again. And I'm trying to like build the muscles in it back up. But since I got back from my holiday, I kind of because George and Leon, like a bunch of the guys in the gym have fights, but then a lot of our guys are Muslim and fasting for Ramadan. So there's like the mats are a bit less populated at the minute, or you can't really be having guys who've been fasting for like 15 hours do rounds where they're getting hit in the head. That's just I'm vetoing that completely. I don't want that going on in the gym. Um, so when I got back up north on Monday, I did two lighter rounds with people feeling stuff out. And I was like, all right, my neck's not giving me any problems. George and Leon need some spars. And then I went like back to back with Leon and then George, quite intense. And then two amateur flyweight lads who have fights coming up in a quite intense fashion. And it held up. The fitness didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I give Leon a really good round. Like I'm not sure if you've trained, but sometimes it happens where you take a bit of time out and then you come back and you've got this kind of sharpness. It's like your filter's gone and you're just doing stuff and it's good. And especially because Leon's fighting a guy who's quite like hands down and orthodox. So I was like, oh, I'll just do an impression of this guy. And it was quite fun. And then like between that round and the round with George starting, I was like, oh, my body's not working now.
It's kicking in
And
now.
then yeah, and then I felt like 3 weight classes heavier when I got to sparring with George. Um, but it's held up.
Yeah.
It's a little bit stiff now, I think, because I have kind of jumped back in a bit hard. I'm going to really take it sensible tonight and over the weekend. I'm going to rest it because I think if I was to keep going hard for the next day or so, I'd be risking it. And then next week is George's last full training week, so I don't have to do as much. But yeah, essentially, I would prefer the long-winded answer to this question is I'd have preferred to take it a bit slower.
Yeah.
But I'm being a good training partner, and I'm putting myself at risk.
That's sometimes what you got to do, mate, in your game. And talking of that injury and pulling out of that fight, how frustrating was that for you? Because how far along in your camp had you been going before the injury happened?
You can look at it now, but like that fight wouldn't have really done anything for me if I'd have won.
Yeah.
It'd have just been another win on my record. I really could have done with the money. You could do with the money. I'm tempted to be like, yo, Ian, find me some Italian lightweight because I ain't making featherweight at this point for that date. No way. But that would also be stupid. But I like the money's the sickener there. You're kind of relying on your body for your income, and I'm a bit like, oh well. But I just feel more stupid than anything. Like I could have just taken a day off, or, taken a bit of time off, and it'd have probably been all right. But yeah, I didn't, and it is what it is. I can't like get caught up on it, and I can't just dwell on it. That's not productive. I've just got to look at what is productive now. Like, okay, in future, don't do that. In future, or like now, spend more time strengthening your neck up. Because I got a big old head and a skinny ass neck, and that is a problem in a sport where there's already a lot of strain on your neck. But yeah, just not focusing on that and the injury and stuff, and just focusing on what I can do to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And looking at your Cage Warriors career at present, you're on 3 wins and 1 draw. How much have you enjoyed your time in the promotion so far?
It's been great. Um, yeah, like I love the Cage Warrior staff. I love all the production stuff. I love the backstage stuff. I mean, it was weird because like in initially when they tried to sign us, we were a bit like, do we, don't we? Well, they are giving us fights, and now we've both just gone all in on it, and it's been great. I mean, I met my missus through her working at Cage Warriors, so like,
Oh, really? Wow. Talk us through that then.
yeah,
Talk us through that.
she wrapped my hands for the Indoi fight, and then after that fight, I was really knackered, and I remember her giving me a Frosties cereal bar, and being like, "Oh, she's nice." And then we ignored each other for like 5 months, and then
It's usually
the
how it
rest is
starts.
history. Yeah,
You mentioned the spectacle you put on against Steve Emable in your last fight. You just described it as your best ever performance. How would you rate it? Because obviously you put on, you destroyed the bloke for 3 rounds.
yeah, there's still stuff I'm really unhappy with. Like there's stuff I'll watch it back. I'm like, oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this.
Mm.
But it's important again just to channel that into something productive.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't like to dwell on stuff even positively, but I'm proud of that one. Like he's fought some tough people, like some like Vucenic couldn't do that. Like everyone was beating him by like close fights, close decisions. Other than Mads Bennell, who he's Mads Bennell still got clipped by him and wobbled
Mm.
and didn't do as much damage as I did and didn't make it look as easy as I did. So I can take pride in it and I can take a bit of joy in it, but I'm just like I should have my grip fighting should have been better when I was looking for the choke. I should have strung my sequences together a bit better, and like I could have maybe got the finish on the feet. Uh, I should have just thrown a big random wheel kick in the last minute or something, like just anything to try and clout them in the head. I'd sort of like I was getting a little, there was a little bit of fatigue setting in. I'd used a lot of energy hitting him, but in that last minute, I should have just done something to whack him. But obviously, then you're putting yourself at risk. And it's like the same thing with the grip buying thing. Like I was squeezing on the choke and I kind of felt like I had it. But like you saw my in-fight senses were a bit like, okay, this you're using a lot of energy here.
Mm.
Switch to a more efficient grip. And it was as I was switching to a more efficient grip, he managed to the hand fight and stuff. So like I've got to trust those senses. Like I've spent a long time developing them.
Yeah.
And I can't just start ignoring them and doing stupid shit for the sake of it.
Yeah, no, completely. And I was actually lucky enough to watch Amable last weekend in his loss to Albert Diaz. He put in some great performances during the rounds. He put up some great commitment again, as he did in your fight. So when you see stuff like that, you must take great pride in the fact. I know you talk about improvements, but you must take great pride in the fact that you beat somebody like that comfortably.
Yeah, it's like I've just been like I've been looking for a performance like that in Cage Warriors. Like I've had in my 3 fights prior, um, I got sat on my ass and then kicked in the dick by Ndoi. I got my rib injured badly by Commande on my intercostal muscles or whatever.
Yeah,
And then Pasquale nearly done killed me.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but like, like even in one of the judges gave me that round where Ndoi dropped me. It's like I, up to that. So up to that point, I'd had 9 rounds in Cage Warriors.
yeah,
And if you go by one of the judges' scorecards, I'd only lost one of them. So like in theory, like I'm fucking decisively dominating these people, but I'd had like fuck ups and lapses in concentration and just thrown myself into bad situations. Um, whereas I didn't do that time.
yeah.
And I didn't even get to show a lot of the adjustments that I'd made in training, which is a good thing. There's still a lot of surprises left, but for my own competitive sake, being able to win fights better, and for my longevity's sake, I have had to change things about my style. But I think the Aimable fight was good because, like, even though I'd changed these things, I was still exciting. I was still good to watch.
Yeah.
I hadn't like got rid of the core essence of what I do and how I win fights. But I just done it without taking any damage.
Yeah, exactly. And extending it a bit further past the Cage Warriors career, what's been your favorite performance in your entire MMA career so far? Maybe taking away the Aimable fight.
Um, Probably the Carlos Support one in Croatia, because like I know this word gets thrown around a lot, and like before that fight, I was depressed. It was situational depression. It was like stuff I could have fixed, but like after the Smullen fight, I was 5-3. I was 26. Yeah. And I kind of just thought, I'm too old. I've not had enough fights. My career's over. Like that was shit. My last performance was shit. And I just got into this like very negative where I kind of thought my career was just done and I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do with it. And I'd almost conceded, right, I guess I'm just going to be George's coach now. That's fine. That's just what I'm going to do.
Mm.
But then it was just so random. Like it came out of nowhere. Like Carl Prince just put like, oh, I'm looking for a featherweight to fight an 8-2 guy, Europe only. I was like, message my coach. Should we see what this is about? I kind of expected it to be some domestic fight on because it was the same day as Cage Steel. And it was all during the pandemic stuff. So I was like, that's the only show really going on. And then it was like, Fight Nation Championship in Croatia against the Croatian Cowboy. And we were just like, eh?
Eyes light
Okay.
up.
Yeah, we were just like, well, 3 weeks notice, the middle of a pandemic, we're going to have to get special permission from both governments to leave and come back. But yeah, fuck it, let's have a punt at this. And like,
Yeah.
up to that point, um, I'd never won a fight where I'd have to fly out and fly back. So I'd never won a fight that I'd have to fly to.
Yeah.
I'd never won a short notice fight. Like I had my one loss in kickboxing, and my first pro loss was short notice fights. And then I'd struggled with former lightweights who were heavier than me and bigger than me physically, who had a like a squeezy, grindy, like controlling style. And that fight was all three of those things. And we just prepared really fucking well. It was my first fight under Unit 29. Like it was the first fight where I had a strength and conditioning program. And just everything, like I felt invincible in the warm-up room. Probably like that kind of feeling kind of carried over into the Doi fight. And that might be why I got dropped by him, to be fair. But for the Croatia fight, it was amazing. Like it was this weird experience going out of this other country. I felt fucking invincible in the warm-up room. Like that's the best I've felt hitting pads ever. And then go out and just drop the guy twice and submit him in the first round and like smile at him and start clowning him. It's the first time I've ever done the fucking walking around screaming and celebrating and all that stuff. And then I end up calling Francis Ngannou out in the post-fight interview for whatever reason. But it was, and then just heading back, and then the incredibly stressful journey home because we thought we were going to get trapped in Schiphol airport because the UK government wasn't letting people back in who hadn't had a CPR test or whatever in the past 24 hours or 48 hours.
Yeah.
And we just had lateral flow tests. But there is a woman in the Dutch who works for KLM, the Dutch airline, who just sort of looked and went, yeah, and let me on the plane. And I thank her to this day because we were in that airport for a while, stressing that we wouldn't actually be allowed back in our country and we'd have to just live in an airport like Tom Hanks in that film.
To be fair, if you could be stuck in any country, Croatia isn't a bad country to be stuck in.
No, it was just Schiphol, just the airport in Holland.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay, maybe not then. Maybe not.
Croatia probably would have let us out the airport. We'd have been full on stuck in the airport in Holland. The plane from Croatia to Holland was a bit rinky dink as well, to be fair.
Mm.
It's the first time I've ever sat on a flight and before it's taken off, I'm thinking, like just bundled in, the propellers have started moving because I had propellers, and I'm just thinking, I'm here for the next how many hours? Oh, and
One
then
of
it was
those
really
ones.
loud.
Yeah.
But there was no food, there was no water. It was not nice.
Wasn't one of those ones. I've been one of those flights before where they start de-icing the wings before you take off as well. That's always a killer as well.
Yeah, like it's like air travel is really safe. You're more likely to die driving to the airport than you are in the plane.
Yeah.
But the consequences of stuff going wrong is
Yeah. I know what you mean. I know it's a different it's something to get used to as well. Because obviously when you climb up the rankings as an athlete in any sport, the chances are you are going to be flying a lot more. And we don't hear a lot of athletes talk about the actual pressures and like if people don't actually like flying.
I don't mind flying. To be fair, like it was just that one Croatia plane. I've been begging Ian Dean to get me on one of the San Diego cards,
Yeah.
uh, but he's having none of it. I feel like it's more of a visa thing than anything.
Yeah.
But I guess if I get a working visa sorted, but I'd have to do that myself. But I would love that because yeah, like I guess that's the one downside of Cage Warriors so far is for the majority of it, it's just been London. Whereas I quite like like for the majority of my career beforehand, I was the blue corner guy going into someone else's hometown, and it was good. It was almost like you had that kind of like fighting game
Yeah.
experience, like Tekken 2,
Yeah.
where you'd
Yeah.
go fight someone and they'd have their own stage, and their stage would usually represent where they were from.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I quite like, I would love to go to America and fight an American. Like I would, I would want, I want to fight, as far as the ones that are available in Cage Warriors, I would love to fight Charrier in France or Hughes in Ireland or Harilla in Sweden. Like it would have that effect, like, because essentially what I'm doing as a job is I'm doing boss fights,
Yeah. Yeah. You are. Yeah.
and
Essentially.
like you don't bring the boss to where you're from. You go and fight the boss in the boss's stage. So I'd want to do that.
That's kind of an aim. Because when we talk about with a lot of Cage Warriors fighters on here, the name that's on everybody's lips is the UFC. And speaking to people as well, that there are things they want, although they're aiming for the UFC, there are things they want to do before actually making it there. So, for example, I know Kalen Loughran said he wanted to fight in Ireland. Is that something that you want to do in Cage Warriors then? Fight elsewhere, fight in the islands, France's, USA's of the world?
Yeah, like I fought in Belfast and it was fucking amazing. That was arguably the best MMA show I've ever been to. And I'm saying that as someone who contributed to that, so maybe I'm biased. But like there was one stinker of a fight on it. Other than that, there was spectacular finishes. Me and Pasquale and McKee and Burlington both got nominated for Fight of the Year, and we were on the same event.
Yeah.
Obviously, like I had loads of people afterwards telling me that my fight was Fight of the Year candidate. And then McKee and Burlington go out and do that in the main event with more eyes on them. So
That
fuck
was
them.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And just sort of feeling that energy and seeing that energy. But like, I would really love if I could get a fight in America under Cage Warriors before I go to the UFC, just to get that in as early as I can.
Yeah.
But it's just seeing how things work. I might have to work on my begging game or be more annoying to Ian Dean. I should probably call him actually, because I'm just thinking there's no idea, like, this is coming from me. The France card that's to be confirmed, fuck knows when that is.
Yeah.
However, there is San Diego in June, and that
Very
would fit in well. Don't know if me sorting out my own visa and transport over there would mean I wouldn't make money from that. But yeah, if I could get June 3rd San Diego, that would be great. I need to fight.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
don't.
And talking about the build-ups and the lead-ups to fights, you train at Middlesbrough Fight Academy. Your main coach is Abdul Mohammed. How great is your relationship with him as a trainer, and how important has his and the other coaches' guidance to you been for your development in MMA?
Oh, it's massive. Like I was, I was actually saying this to someone earlier. We got well. Someone sent me a pirated copy of Khabib's BJJ Fanatics instructional.
Nice.
Obviously, I definitely didn't watch a pirated copy.
Oh no,
But
no chance.
watching this pirated copy of Khabib's instructional, it was just almost like it was very, very, very similar to what Abdul's been showing us from day one in MMA, like
Yeah.
that sort of method of MMA wrestling and MMA control. Um, yeah, it's huge. Like it's such an amazing resource having that. And then as for my other coach Peter Irving in Newcastle, like his approach to grappling is just fucking second to none. It's like so advanced and so many layers to it. And then it's kind of this weird thing as far as striking goes, where me and George are very self-guided with that, and we kind of are each other's coaches in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, MFA, when we've taken over, we've got a lot of really good up and coming lads coming through, and it's like honestly, we've kind of outgrown the facility we're in. It's just we need to figure out what we're going to do about like maybe changing it around and optimizing the space, because there's more and more people coming in. We've got more and more guys fighting now. Like we're going to be a real force as far as gyms in the UK are concerned. Like I can guarantee you that. George, not the last Cage Warriors, like not even including me. George is not the last Cage Warriors champ this gym's going to produce, and we're going to produce multiple UFC fighters. I can guarantee you that.
Talking of the UK MMA scene, how do you see it compared to other countries, Europe, USA, for example? Because the talent pool at the minute with gyms like yourself, gyms like Renegade as well, like there's so much talent in the UK at the minute. How do you see it compared to the rest of the world?
Oh, it's fucking nuts. Like I've said this a few times, and I'll say it again. When I get to the UFC, it will be a step down in competition for my first couple of fights from what I'm used to. Like, I think with organizations like Cage Warriors, where the matchmaking is good and competitive throughout, and that being the main like platform in Europe, is skyrocketed the development, because it's a very sink or swim kind of thing. I know America is a lot bigger, so it's in some places it'll be harder to find actual good opponents in that area. But the UK and Europe's madness. It's nuts. Like I've said this numerous times, and I'll say it again. Just think about the Cage Warriors featherweight division right now. So think Hughes, me, Vucenic, Hurla, Charrier, fucking Emil, Diaz. Like, is there anyone on that list you don't think is UFC standard?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, I watched Bull and Diaz last weekend, and I was watching and thinking, yeah, this is UFC standard easily.
Yeah, like it's running that deep where there is UFC standard. Hendon, fucking hell, like I've sparred Hendon a few times. He's fucking unbelievable. Like it is running that deep. It's just the depth of it's mental.
Yeah.
Like I feel like Arnold Allen probably going to be champ soon. Like the UK will produce more champs. I'm telling you now.
Who do you think will be the next UFC champ from England or UK?
Well, Arnold Allen.
Allen, yeah.
Like, yeah. And then trying to sort of think past that and see past that.
Markaev, Aspinall, people like that. Who are you thinking of?
Aspinall, like, is up there. Markaev, I feel like he needs to just abandon this pursuit of becoming the youngest champ, because I feel like he had a shoulder injury or whatever not too long ago, and then still just trained through and did his fight camp, and then had this knee injury. I feel like he just needs to slow down a bit or he's going to spend himself.
Yeah.
And there'll be a very rapid plummet in his ability to fight. You'll kind of end up in this maybe like Hamzat situation where he comes out of the gate really fast as far as his UFC career goes, and then it just tapers off. You know, like Hamzat's in this weird position now where we're just like, when's he fighting?
Yeah.
And someone said he's almost like the UFC's Dylan Danny at this point, and I'm like, you're wrong, but you're also a bit right.
Yeah.
Like, so Mokaev needs to just, I think he needs to just slow down a bit and not knacker his body out.
Yeah.
Aspinall, I think definite champ potential there. Just there's a few. Like the country, we're in good hands.
Yeah. Good. And kind of going back a little bit to Middlesbrough Fight Academy, I spoke to your brother a few days ago, and I didn't ask him, but I was interested actually in whether there was much of a sibling rivalry between the two of you growing up, and whether that still, you know, pushes you on now within the gym.
Yes and no. It's kind of like, I've said this before and I'll say it again, like your siblings are your first friends and your first rivals. Like that's, you know, unless you're an only child, that's just how that is.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There you go. There you go.
Your first friends and your first rivals will have been someone else.
Yeah. So I can't really relate to this one, but yeah, as you say.
But yeah, it's this, we're competitive with each other and we're there for each other and supporting. It's like, yeah, they're like, spars can escalate, essentially.
Yeah.
Things can escalate, but never to like an unreasonable level. And it's just, we know we can escalate with each other more than we can with other people. And I feel like part of the fact that we have such endurance in fighting, such good endurance in fighting, and such good ability to break people down is because we try and ramp a pace on each other. And like that, obviously, I'm trying to ramp a pace on him and make him tired. He's trying to ramp up a pace on me and make me tired. We're both trying to tire each other out. And it's this like, that kind of escalation. And then when we get to people who aren't as good at that as we are, oh, they're tired now. This is sound.
Yeah. Yeah. And looking forward in your career, what fight do you hope to get next? Do you want the the second chance at Yousaf? Do you want a title shot against Vicenic, Paul Hughes? Because you are ranked second in the featherweight rankings, British and Ireland. So what are you thinking comes next?
I want the easiest fight available. Maybe if they can get me in San Diego and pay for me to stay there for like a couple of weeks and get a nice tan, and then fight someone who's totally incompetent, preferably a bit impaired. I'll do that because all my fights have been really hard. Like, you know, fucking as much as I have actually asked for Charrier, as much as like Hughes and Charrier are up there, those are hard fights, man. That's a lot of effort.
You want an easy fight for the most amount of money possible, basically.
Easy fight for not only the most amount of money, the nicest location.
Yeah, yeah. You want a fight against a random impaired guy in the Barbados, basically, is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, if that is an option, I'll snatch that out of whoever's hand is offering.
Yeah, it sounds good, mate. It sounds good. And finally, I don't want to take too much of your time today. We asked this of everybody on the show. What do you think the future looks like for yourself?
So, get to the UFC. Shout about Palmos. Get the Fuck It Friday episode from Dana White, the Dana White Fuck It Friday episode on Palmos. Yeah?
Yep.
You know, win UFC fights, go for the belt, and, you know, me and George do all that famous stuff.
Yeah.
But then start my own global Palmo fast food chain.
Right. Okay.
And become a billionaire.
Yeah.
And then I haven't really thought past that.
No, I don't think you need to think past that, mate. I think once you hit billionaire, I think you're all right.
Yeah, and then actually, then just waste all my money on PS2 games because they're getting expensive now.
They are getting very expensive. You will need a UFC title to afford most PS2 games in the future, mate. I'll tell you that.
I mean, actually, we're probably sitting on a fucking gold mine here. We've still got loads of them that are in playable condition from when we were younger. So, you know, I might actually be able to afford a house if we were to dig all these out properly.